multiple times. Dubai is noted for its openness, diversity, and safety, inclusivity. But this time, I learned a lot about Dubai can be a great hub for business as well. And equally important to note Dubai as a great place for love and for falling in love as well. Just learned a few minutes ago. And this could be the first global forum on unicorns. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our beautiful moderator. Where's the handsome moderator? He just left, and our panelists. And so many of you contributed so much in insight, in experience, And today, I would like to share with you where the idea has been coming from in CKGSB. Why in 2015, we single out unicorn as a key frontier for CKGSB to go global, for CKGSB to be a truly global citizen, and to contribute to global economic growth and social mobility. 3 issues today. Economic development models, I give a simple classification. And I would like to highlight the role of economic disruption. And also give you a simple measure of economic disruption. Actually, economic disruption, unicorn is one of the elements. And lastly, I will share with you our effort in building a global ecosystem to foster the next generation unicorns. What is the next generation unicorns? Well, this is my simple classification of economic development models. Key determinant is a Gini coefficient. So I classify the global economic model into 3 kinds. The first one is neoliberalism, as practiced well by US and China. The second one is a state capitalism, which can be characterized by an important role of government, you're allocating resources, a strong presence of state-owned enterprises, as well the industry policy. The third one is a social democracy, which is a common practice in many Western European countries, which can be considered socialism in the positive sense. It's market economy, private enterprises, great innovation, but it's really noted for sophisticated social security systems. Neoliberalism, started by Ms. Thatcher in 1979, followed much by President Reagan. He's a big fan of Ms. Thatcher, and also shaped China's reform and opening up in a fundamental way. One might argue China and the United States, the 2 countries which may have embraced neoliberalism better than any other economies globally. And if you look at the contribution of these 2 nations to the global economic growth for the past 4 decades, see the data from World Bank indicating that China contributed about 20%, US contributed 23.6%. About 45%, Nearly half of the story for the past 40 years coming from these 2 countries which embrace neoliberalism. And you look at the data from 2013 to 2021, China has made a dominating contribution to global economic growth. China contributed 38.6%. The US contributed 18.6%. And G7 countries together contributed 25.7%. Over half of the economic growth coming from these 2 nations. So that's the beautiful side of neoliberalism. And also, there's a negative side of neoliberalism as well. If you look at the income inequality, the first time I looked at income inequality, the Gini coefficient was 2009, right after the global financial crisis. I was so shocked to learn China ranked number 2 among the major economies. Brazil was number 1. China was number 2. Socialistic country, Gini coefficient number 2 globally. Well, this is very interesting, So that's the first time I'm so shocked, And then even as of today, China number 4. India is head of the US, then Brazil, then China. So China and the US, the Gini coefficient have been far higher than 0.4 from 0 to 1. Anything above 0.4 is considered a threshold for social instability. Now you can appreciate why the Chinese government recently has been emphasized so much on common prosperity. Why in the US, they emphasize so much on inclusive capitalism. To me, that's the two sides of the same coin. My argument is these two countries embraced neoliberalism so much, we have generated so much economic growth. That's the plus side. But the income inequality is other side of the same coin. Beauty and the ugly side. Okay, so the two nations, China and United States, share so much in common, by the way, so much in common. And one might argue, which my argument is, you may argue, US growth maybe, probably predominantly driven by innovations. As far as innovation, US second to none. But in terms of growth in China, one might argue is driven by disruptions. Not necessarily China the best innovation, but you see China contributed so much, especially to 2013. So that's the story I want to tell. Everybody knows the story of innovations, but not so many people appreciate the importance of economic disruption. I measure economic disruption using 3 data sets. Number 1, the number of newly emerged global companies. The second data set, the newly minted billionaires on Forbes. And also the change of the richest people in the country. I jumped the queue a little bit. When I look at the 10 richest people in China, 2011. Now look at the most recent list of 10 rich people in China by Forbes. Only one stayed at the top 10. I mean, from professor point of view, that's so beautiful. That's social mobility. Why you always the richest guy in China? I want a new kids on the block. I want people from ordinary background and making to one of the 10 richest people in China. That's one reason we have a Unicorn program. We call it, new wave of new money. New wave of new money. Yes, we have Alibaba. We have Tencent. We also have Pinduoduo, which is also from a Unicorn program. Always new kids on the block. Very important for economic growth and for social mobility. The third data set is unicorns, that relating to the global unicorn forum today. Let me just give you the data set, 3 data sets on this economic disruptions. Look at the number of global 500 companies from China. We had 11 in 2001. Last year, we have 129. So exceeded the number of the US, become the largest number. About 2 years ago. So we did awfully well. No country coming close, in terms of newly emerged Fortune global companies. If you look at newly minted billionaires, we only had one. Rong Zhijian, remember how those from China, Rong Zhijian was the only one making the list of Forbes, That's 201. Today, we have 539. Actually, last year, we had 600 something because zero COVID policy. Some of them disappeared. 100 of them disappeared from the list. It's very, very damaging for the billionaires as well. So China created more billionaires than any other economy globally. China is number 2 in generating number of unicorns. So we are number 1 in 2 fronts. Number 2, third data set. One might argue one of the reasons China has been successful is this continued and sustained disruptions. China, not necessarily the best in innovations. This disruption idea, the disruption insight, can be very relevant for not only for developing economy, for the Africa continent, for Latin America, for Southeast Asian countries, but also for advanced nations. Look at Japan, excellent in innovations. Western Europe, for example, definitely they're not excellent in generating disruptions. So they have much learned from China in that regard. The Chinese experience can be shared globally. That's one of the reasons I started Unicorn program In 2015, something unique in China, I think that can be globally relevant, maybe we're the first business school to do that, 2015. So by end of 2021, we had 136 founders, co-founder unicorn studied in our program. That's far higher than any other school globally. By design, not random, like coming out, So this is where the idea is coming from. As a professor, I want to share with you my conceptual framework, the conceptual framework in this regard, And you can see in terms of unicorns, US is still dominating. China is number 2, India is number 3. One thing for sure, you cannot say everything is driven by the size of population, or everything is driven by size of GDP, And then if you compare especially Korea with Japan, one good example, in terms of number of unicorn companies, Korea is far ahead of Japan in that regard, despite the fact size of GDP, population smaller. Actually, Italy, the number 8 economy globally in size of GDP, only had 2 unicorns a few months ago, 2 fintech companies, So, I visited Milan a few times. I share with my Italian friends, say, hey, you guys need to catch up. You have such a huge potential. You need to do much better, Okay, so that's the reason why I will do a Korean unicorn module in September in Korea. Maybe some of the European countries come to Korea to learn how the small, not small, but the size of GDP and population, not as large as China, as US, but you still can do well. So attitude, an ecosystem, which we talk about, making a huge difference. Okay, so Korean experience, very relevant, And that's the reason why not only we started in China in partnership with some of the top companies, Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, ByteDance, but we want to do a global ecosystem for unicorns. Next generation unicorn. What I mean by next generation unicorns, number 1, renewed emphasis on social purpose. I would like to see each and every one of them telling me a story. What you can do socially, not only economically. You share with me your social story. In what way you can help our societies address the issue like income, wealth inequality, diminishing social mobility, even from day one. I know you're under the gun, burning rate, survive. But you got to think about that. Okay, what you can do socially for your society, very important. From design, even from day one. Okay, the whole system, And secondly, I would like to see some of them to be global. I love the theme here, global citizens. Look at today, more and more countries, people are getting so selfish. Only my own interest. No future for humanity if we think that way. I think we need more business leaders who are truly more responsible globally, and we have a future for our humanity. The third element is what I call long-term perspective. What is that? I introduced the humanities to our business school in 2005, history, philosophy, religion. The reason I did that was I was completely not happy with our current political system, our economic system, because none of the system truly providing long-term incentive for our political leaders or business leaders to care about issue of truly important for humanity 100 years later, 200 years later. Western democracy, 4 years, 5 years a term. Why should I care about issue of 100 years consequence? Business system, 10 years we call it long-term planning. Present value, discounted cash flow, something we preach in business school. $100 late, 100 years later, discounted 10%. It doesn't mean very much today. So we business school generated one generation after another, truly myopic business leaders. So that's what I call collective myopia of humanity. Don't jump the gun to criticize each other. We do some soul searching. You tell me what long-term incentive you have provided for your political leaders, for your business leaders. So long-term perspective is very important. So that's what I call the next generation unicorns. Social purpose, global responsibility, and a long-term perspective. I hope that's we're going to preach that every module we have, whether it's in Dubai or in Singapore, in other places, okay. So we have this global, ecosystem. We started with the first global forum, Unicorn, today. Again, I want to thank all of you for contributing, make this event a great success. And then we'll have another one coming up in Singapore in May, and Korea in September. And we have a module with Bocconi University in Milan in October, focused on fashion, food, furniture, luxury goods. And we have a program for Africa unicorns. I'm really pleased to see some of this, very successful businessmen from Africa showcase their experience and their success. That's inspiration, So we are really privileged to work with UNESCO to do a unicorn program for Africa continent, And the modules under negotiation, Bocconi University with Stanford Engineering, I hope end of this year or early next year, on deep tech-driven unicorns. And with University of San Diego, on biotech, life science, because they are noted for their excellence in biotech. So this is some of the effort, some of our experiment in building this global ecosystem to foster the next generation of unicorns. Thank you so much. Thank all of you for making this forum a great success. Thank you. Thank you.